Hi again, and welcome to Real People with Real Answers, a For God production from Friends of Justice. Tonight we're going to continue with our discussion on bond issues and oaths of office and many other things in government that maybe people are not aware of. We always want to let people know that this show is about belief, not about proving anything. But you must be the one who makes the judgment call on what you believe, what you don't believe. That's why we have our book for Ripley's Believe It or Not, because Ripley did a lot of things, a lot of strange things, collected a lot of strange items. Whether you believe it or not, he didn't say you have to prove it. He just said believe it or not. And so I start out with a text that says, John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth should not perish, but have everlasting life." So stay tuned. We're going to have an exciting show tonight. I guarantee you, one that you have never seen before. Again, this is Charles LeBlanc saying, welcome aboard. Hang in there. Don't touch that dial.
Hi, I'm here again with Phil Gillen. I'm Phil Bassett, and we also have Andre Bellows with us
Yes, we do.
tonight.
Yes.
I was talking with Phil last time
Yeah.
about a kind of confusing subject, if you ask me. It's and I almost don't know how to categorize it. But I guess if I was to put a broad term on it, I would say that our economic system is a complete lie, that our government and insurance industries are very falsified, that things seem to be happening behind the scenes that we have no idea of. For instance, you told me, if I can give just a couple examples, you talked about presenting a bond that is already on some public official. They have large amounts of bonds on them, and that you could somehow tap into this bond and use it for your own bill paying ability.
Mm-hmm.
And that not only is this possible, but it's okay and almost your obligation under the system that it is. And the way the system is, it's designed to benefit people who are insiders. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of us, maybe 99% or more,
Right.
have no idea of its real workings, and so can't take full advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, we could take it so far as to say this system enslaves all of us in its tentacles. Am I off on any of those?
You're absolutely right, Phil.
Okay, so with that, we'll let you take it, the man with the knowledge.
Well, the bond system works as a form of, how do you want to call it? Almost like a liquidation system for people that are in receivership. Basically, if I can't pay a debt with a debt, ultimately I need a middleman to act as a trustee. So they have to liquidate me, and I have to associate with that form of granting ability. I'll grant you certain privileges and benefits, and you're going to, in trade, you're going to give me certain forms of benefits: Federal Reserve notes, bonds, stocks, guarantees, anything that's underwritten and guaranteed either by the state, federal, or municipal governments.
This is you're saying that the bill can't be paid, so we use these little.
They give us IOUs, and then they expect us to pay with those IOUs, which are then, again, borrowed against, and then we're supposed to suffice with these funds. These are actual, this is an actual form of payment. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Well,
The story is, hold on. When Federal Reserve came up,
mhm,
at that time the United States filed bankruptcy.
correct.
So
1933.
once we filed in the bankruptcy, we live in a bankruptcy. That means we cannot pay a debt.
With a debt.
Yes. Well, you cannot pay
So
a debt.
we're in a bankruptcy
Now
right now. That's our status. We're in bankruptcy,
Yeah, we've always been.
and have been since 1933.
Yes, and you cannot pay your debt. So the only thing was they took 1933 pretty much June 5th. They took all the gold and silver out of the circulations and gave you this Federal Reserve notes.
Substitute.
Yeah, substitute, which is supposedly had some kind of value, but really didn't. Okay, and then in exchange they gave you Social Security Act, in which when you became a beneficiary, And from that moment, they gave you the number, they identified you, your name starts spelled in capital letters. All that stuff took place at the time when you pretty much, you've been a sovereign that time, okay, sovereign person, living person. Once you become, past 1934, you became a slave because your name, the citizen started being spelled with lowercase scenario, just a citizen with lower stat, which identifies the thing.
Right.
And then from that moment, your name became a capital letters, which is identifies one of the three things. It's either dead man, a vessel, or a corporation.
Oh, what was the second one?
The vessel,
What does that mean?
which means it's a ship in the admiralty.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because it's everything controlled through the Holy See.
Okay.
You gotta go back to those who
The
started
same way as admiralty in court. You have
Yes.
like you have the flag behind you.
Yeah.
And with 13 stars, that would be the original jurisdiction or jurisprudence of public law. But public policy took over in 1881. They decided to incorporate the Constitution, which was a form of a contract. With the continuity of government, knowing that it couldn't sustain its financial obligations to its foreign and domestic partners, they decided, well, why don't we unite as a front, whereas you get the Gold Friends flags inside of the courts, which you're really looking at is not only admiralty in the form of a vessel. When you go in, you are in a negotiation to start a war with another entity, which ultimately in negotiation of war, there has to be a form of peace treaty. And if you're not from another country, they're absolutely looking at you like a domestic product, attempting to use the welfare of the state in the form of a benefit, which is if you, in a form of transparency, you lease your name, so to speak, the same way as if you were deposited into an institution, your deposit reflects how much your worth is. Therefore, the reflection of that contract by the beneficiarial standards, the standards of this corporation we call the circuit court, the county municipal of so-and-so, so-and-so, it actually installs this beneficiarial system to financially oblige you under the law, which of course they set aside a certain amount of money, called a budget, to finance those operations. These same operations, if found conclusive in your studies, you actually can find that the statutes and the ability to contract with oneself by form of third party, say I'm my own vessel, I sue myself, I'm acting as if myself or my intermediate third party is shipwrecked, meaning he's not there, he's there to default into being pulled to the harbor. I bring him into these United States. Gold Friends flag, thus the admiralty of one party disagreeing with the other, but yet still agreeing with that party and establishing the third party's benefits to oneself. You can literally restrain yourself from the U.S. government using your benefits to create a form of a tax, an expenditure, an appropriation, a misappropriation of monies that they could use in any form of programming. I mean, they can come up with all kinds of. Imagine if I'm locked away for 40 years, and I was to tell the state, well, I'm willing to give you the budget on how much you're going to incarcerate me for. You're going to incarcerate me for the next 40 years for, let's say, $60 million. That's just giving a rough estimate based on the budget. And I say, well, if we reflect this budget and give it to the Social Security Act, where we can spread these appropriations out to fund and operate certain forms of indemnification, especially cases like what is it, Article or Title 4D, which actually allows the states to come in and say, we have the right to restrain your rights and take your benefits as long as you have a child and you're in negotiation. Thus, just like a shipwreck, your person defaulted once you sign the birth certificate and you become the beneficiary of neglecting or abandoning the ship.
Yeah, pretty much. And then they go with the recovery,
Right.
like a debt collector.
That's
All they
right.
do is just trying to recover their ship, pretty much. You're considered to be dead, and now they're just trying to collect, recover wherever it's or sink.
I'm considered to be dead right now.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
artificial
every single
entity.
person, yeah. As long as your name is spelled all capital letters, that's it. Until you take possession and become an executive executor.
Executive officer.
You
I
know,
have the
executor.
legal status of a dead person as it sits right now.
Yes, you do. 14th Amendment citizen even said that you can be subjected to the contract outside of the Constitution.
Corporation is not living.
That's right.
Anything what's corporation, it has nothing. It's a fiction.
Absolutely.
So they're
Nope.
trying to pretty much punish you for your corporation. You know, you kind of running the ship, but the ship is not living.
You're trying
you
to
know.
operate it.
Do you know where's your docking
system.
station?
Right.
No.
It's in the mailbox,
That's right.
man.
That's right. When you receive mail,
Mailbox. That's a docking station.
they
Everyone's
literally,
it.
when they deposit something at your post station and you receive it,
You're acknowledging that you're a ship docking.
Yes.
right?
Everything went through the Admiralty. That's how they operate, and that's how. it's-
Okay, but if I'm docked, then I'm not wrecked. So how can I be both?
Because you start a war on accident. You decide to walk on land
Dishonor.
and attempt to act as a man in the artificial, and they're like, well, wait a minute. You're not supposed to come off this ship.
So I'm committing a crime just by being a free human being.
By
Yes.
acting in a corporate capacity. By receiving mail is literally a, fraud. Especially if it has a red meter stamp. Red meter stamps are illegal.
Well, how do you live without the post office? I mean, everybody gets mail.
Well, most want not to use well, not the benefit of the name per
You
se.
should become a postmaster.
a postmaster, or you can
Yourself.
you can put brackets,
Yeah, you can become a postmaster for your own post box.
right?
And then you're the
Then
dock
it's
worker.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a different. Once you learn how to operate in commerce with them, it's everything goes according to the merchant law, that old Babylonian law, which was established through Babylonian, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and then the entire world, all
Right.
adapted that uniform commercial code.
Which is just a system
Which
to
is system-
enslave people, right?
Yes, it's
kind of
total
a magician's
enslavement.
tool.
Yeah, like when you get a ticket, you get uniform citation. It's a ticket. It's not the law. The merchant law is not the law.
But always remember, in law, you can actually outsource and negotiate outside
Yeah.
the perimeters of the law. That means not only the scope of this law uniform to, say, Poland, even though they may not have extraditional negotiational tactics, you can take your lease or loan from the federal government and give it to another government if you wanted to. I mean, literally forfeiting.
Don't they have to accept you?
No, they don't. They don't.
Well, acceptance
It's no only
important.
only if you're negotiating on their terms and their constitutional benefits, which
Oh.
are restrained against their people.
Oh, I see.
And as long as they're willing to take the negotiation and renegotiate it to basically ask the United States, can you withhold the amount on this ticket or this negotiable instrument? The United States government is saying, is it beneficial to us? And we're saying, absolutely, because we're trying to write off our debt on someone else.
Do you know anything about acceptance for value?
Absolutely.
Okay, the only thing you really can do in the bankruptcy, the only thing you can do, you cannot pay because that's why you're in a bankruptcy. So every single person who's paying their bills right
Not
now,
absolutely. You can veto the vote too. You can actually veto
yeah,
what it
but
been.
it's a different story.
Yeah.
Every single thing what comes to you, let's say IRS sends you a bill, okay, the things which you can do only is to accept it for value. How does, explain acceptance, how does Jesus Christ accept us?
Unconditionally.
Unconditionally with the way we are and everything else.
Mhm.
When it comes to acceptance for value, you have to think kind of the same way. It doesn't matter what it's written there. If you want to fight and start a war and 99% of people will lose the war against the beast, you know, it's not that easy to go and, you know, really got to have a spiritual connection.
Okay.
But as long as you accept it for value, and they always send you a voucher with it. Just sign that voucher, acceptance for value, and send it back. That's
You sign. I don't get.
Well,
that.
wait a minute.
You
Here's
sign
another problem.
Accepted
with
for
No,
value.
don't get me wrong. Accepted for value is basically I accept what you offer me. I'm returning it in the
Yeah.
condition of the same. That means if you're offering me $10,
I just gave you the same thing back.
But here's the thing. But here's the scenario. There's no actual value. You have to find the value. The value is in the equity of law. That's where the budget. That's where the endorser. This is what I meant by veto, because you can actually veto the bill. You can say, I didn't sign up for these benefits. That's the difference between the acceptance is actually.
Isn't that a long drawn out process?
No,
though?
absolutely not. If I tender your bill for $10, I give you a $1 bill and say that the balance has been accepted minus $1, then you've accepted $9 off the return of my investment, which is $8. So I'm actually saying the conditional acceptance in the language. The language
you
is
can play a lot.
yeah, you can absolutely, and especially in the abstract when you're actually saying that you've accepted what I've offered, but the balance is acquired by you only by title alone. So now they're looking at it like, well, wait a minute. So you're telling me we incorporated you. Now we're supposed to take the balance and act like this right here is the true beneficiary. In other words, the benefit of the name. That means the signature and the acceptance of the offer for the balance. They've acquired it. I can't be entitled to the balance unless you send me a check. I can sign it and send it back to you for
You
the
can't
balance.
pay off unless they provide you with the funds.
Right.
And he said exactly the way. When somebody sends you a bill, they actually supposedly send you a check with it.
They're supposed
so
to show
can
you
pay.
the balance. That's right. That's how they stole the
You see
equity.
that we're dealing we are living in bankruptcy. We can't pay our bills.
Liquidation.
We can't.
Right.
So whatever they
How-
give us, we have to accept it, and they have to provide us with the funds to pay it. But they don't do it.
Because they want to acquire the balance of
Exactly.
two sets of books. One, that of a ledger of the public. Look on the dollar. It says, oh, this is the legal tender for all debts, public and private. So they're saying that there's two sides of the ledger. We'll create bills, which are private. These are based on contracts or construction of contracts against the people and for the people at the same time. Then that's a negative and positive invertment. You can't say that it's beneficial, but yet still it's a liability at the same time. It's impossible. So they turn and say, well, if you set the dollar bill, that's for both sides of the ledger. So it goes for both sides as long as you're negotiating where the law had participated at and where the law is supposed to end at. So the balance is supposed to be acquired by the account holder. That's supposed to be us. So when you offer me a credit card and I pay with credit card and the statement comes through, I'm supposed to get a check and a balance for that. Because ultimately, just like if I was at it's one of the best metaphors I've ever played on anyone. When I order something, I say, I'll get the check.
Exactly, yeah.
No, it's like, what, hold on. You get the check. So you're telling me are you getting the balance? No. I gotta pay for the check. In other words, I have to pay for the withdrawal of a check on the balance of the people in 33 that they incorporated, and each year they lapped that monetary balance onto the people, which indebted us almost indefinitely.
This is okay.
It's
This is
confusing,
a little bit
and it's
over
a-
my head. Yeah.
But you still gotta remember, guys. We're talking about something which can make you free,
Yeah.
and 99% of the time you will end up in jail.
Absolutely.
So you have to learn things. Don't start doing just because somebody else wrote some kind of bond or something else. You're not jumping on it. Don't file no 1099s or IDs. Period. You will end up in jail. Not today, maybe tomorrow, 6 months later.
Right.
Don't touch it. This is the government right now going after anybody who knows anything about bonds. They are really gonna stress you up.
And speaking of bonds, I wanted to get back to that and establish where the bond process comes from. In actuality, the people gave the bond to the officer. It actually has the language. I don't have it in front of me, but it says payable by the people of the state of Illinois. No, I'm sorry, payable to the people of the state of Illinois in the penal sum of $5 million. I was able to pay both my children's child support with this bond because first, the true official that was the account holder was the receipt holder. So when my ex-wife opened that case, she asked them to become the receipt holders for the balance. So when I told them, okay, well, I'll acquire the balance. But ultimately, I have something that my accountant, which happens to be the clerk of the court, won't refuse. Since the bond is payable back to the very source that ultimately is the middleman in the transaction, then I'll give the receipt holder, which is the state of Illinois, the balance.
Paralegal training, right?
No.
You got an advantage. People do. Is there anything the average person? I mean, are we supposed to brush up on bankruptcy law?
Well,
No,
yeah.
no bankruptcy law. The one thing which you want to learn is Uniform Commercial Code. Kind of the Title 3, what the all the negotiated instrument, Title 8 and Title 4.
And learn all the terms that they use?
Yes, especially UCC 3103 and UCC 3104. That explains you the real definitions, what the bankers use, what's everybody. You have to know that.
Okay.
If you don't know, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're trying to play somewhere. You have no idea about the rules. So you need to know those things.
Is it in
To
legalese? Can the
Yes.
average person read it?
Yes, you can do it. Once you know the definitions, you will understand what they're trying to say. So and you'll start seeing once you start reading those definitions, you'll start kind of comprehending the things we're talking about now.
And if you know those definitions, it's like playing with fire. Because 99% of the people that do what you're saying
Yeah.
and try to act on it will end up in jail.
Yeah, because anything you not convinced or not 100% sure can end you up in jail. Because that if uncertain, double-mindedness, you cannot be certain one time and then uncertain again. Double-mindedness will play the biggest things. Because if you don't understand something, make sure you study.
But there is another way to track down this inevitable problem. Is when a law is being used or a law is going to be administered, and you know it's going to be a problem, regardless of how you're going to negotiate it. The breakdown of the law is two sequences. One, that of an appropriation. Appropriation is basically a line agreement where they're saying an X amount of dollars are going to be spent in a budget. If the budget, of course, is claimed by the people can actually pay their bills. So in reality, they're giving the people the money. They just don't know it's there. The second thing is the billing process, which is legislatively known to be on a contractual consensus by the House. The House actually has to have yeas and nays based on the bill and the probability of all the endorsers of the parties of everyone that voted these people into office. Thus, we endorse them to endorse for us. So we become the beneficiaries of a default government that leases bills to us. Now, the very thing that I've known, and I'm not gonna lie, I am a professional with the law, is that if you're going to contract or do any business with a state in any way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it's the state or the federal government, always look up the appropriation on the bill, find out who endorsed it, and this is based on who's leasing it to us. That means if the governor signed it, and it was signed into law by an overwhelming majority of the House, then those are the ones that are in question of leasing these funds that ultimately find us in default of prison time, of state sentencing guidelines, of paying everything from child support to tickets. I mean, anything that applies to the law to the letter is based on accounting. That's it. That's all it is. It's accounting, principle in contracting, which of course is the bill. That's the actual utility, which of course, if you go through statutes, I hate to say it, they're going to have one bill with like 50 statutes in it. So yes, it's a drawn out study, but if you validate the source of this supposed billing practice, you'll actually find that like any contractor doing business with the city, the state, the county, whomever you're doing business with, inadvertently you're doing business as a businessman. You're contracting to be contracted with. So when you walk into court and you say your name, I walk in, I say, my name is Philip Gillen. And they say, well, Mr. Gillen, thank you for negotiating with us. We have you stenographied, agreeing that you are the party. Thus, they are able to sign the bill for me, send it to Congress, the state Congress, to Congress, after it goes through the comptroller and the Treasury, countersigns these checks, finds them.
So how do you get around that hurdle?
Well, the hurdle is based on who's accountable. Who's accountable is the one that actually signed the bill. I didn't sign it.
Okay, now, when you say sign the bill, what do you mean?
Endorsements.
In other words, if I run into a state or federal government for whatever reason, what would be a typical example where I'd run into them?
Well, you got the governor. He just, let's say he signs a bill, House bill resolution for dog tags. And they decide that they're going to menace the public for not having dog tags on a dog for any particular reason. This they're able to fundamentally bill you for, which of course the endorsement means the countersigner agrees to pay.
They wrote a law so they can bill me for it?
That's right.
It's called statutes and regulations. There is law and there is a color of the law. Statutes and regulations is something which is man-made up pretty much just to do it in commerce. That's what's exactly what they have. Write new ticket or anything else. It's all about statute and regulations. Like going back to the Bible. When Jesus Christ died on the cross, he abolished the statutes and regulations, the traditions. But the 10 Commandments are still standing. Constitution is the law. The merchant law is statute and regulation.
They did the same thing with 3-day lending and truth act. The fact that they used the metaphor of him ascending and 3 days later coming back, they used the 3-day lending and truth act to metaphorically create a biblical testament of the public, meaning that they agreed that if in 3 days a bill returns and no one refuses, the abandonment of their name by endorsing the endorser then can sign off and say by default the public has agreed.
How do you endorse the endorser?
Well, ultimately, you sign them into your
Bring them into the
election.
case, yeah.
Everybody that's that legally represents an office. If you say the Senate wants to get into office, if you endorse him in, you pretty much say, sign any bill, and if I'm caught speeding, if I'm caught running a red light, yeah, lock me up. I'm definitely an endorsing and agreeing party. I'll pay the debt.
How did we endorse that person?
How do we endorse it?
How did we in the first place?
They offered it to us. And this is where the
Did
condition
you
of
give
the
you a
acceptance
ticket?
is.
When they give you a ticket, you accept it.
Yeah, that's right.
You have the right to refuse it.
You
Within
do?
Of course.
My tickets, I used to
Every
sign
single
like.
refuse for the cause without dishonor right away.
But
or
no-
accept it for value. You can do
Right.
it in the same thing.
And
give
I
it back.
did it with Phil. I would actually sign my name and I put a zero balance and put the statutory that they're using against me. Now all of a sudden I'm in court and I'm like, well, I offered the ticket back for the balance. You guys are acquiring something that you're leasing to me, and I loaned it back in a zero balance in the capacity of my signature. I endorsed it for the balance, which is zero. So now they're like, well, this isn't negotiable, of course, because you're in dishonor of trying to create manufacturing book entries so that I can pay you to keep you in business. Now, why would I wanna do
And the
that?
court is going to just lay down and accept it?
And they've done it several dozen
They've
times.
done it, but like I said,
They don't
it's
like it.
always goes. They will
Yep.
try you. They will
Absolutely.
try you. How did you know, man? I mean, why you know this thing? You know, they will try you to find any double-mindedness in you, to see if
To
you
doubt.
know. Yeah,
Doubt. They
if
looking
you got
for
any
doubt.
doubts or anything else, if you know what you're standing on, man, it don't matter what they throw at you. You know,
You've returned several tickets yourself?
all the time.
You
I mean,
return
I
them all
go
the time
after
and say
them.
accepted for value?
Well, I don't get. Well, first of all, let's clarify this. Things. The things we're trying to teach people is not to get away with murder. There is no. It's not anything what we're doing. It's not supposed to have any injured party. If I smack you in the face, you're the injured party. It doesn't matter how many bonds I'll write to you. I'm gonna end up pretty much for assaulting or whatever. This is different. When you get a ticket for speeding, who did you injure? Who was the injured
The
party?
state, the
Right.
state of
You
the
see,
nation.
but that's a fiction. That's something which you can fight, not something which you went and break in somebody's house and now you're gonna try to write some bonds. No, it's not gonna work for you. And I praised those judges not to let you get away with that stuff. You know, it's not supposed to. I mean, we are supposed to govern ourselves first by the Ten Commandments.
Principles.
Yeah, as long as you keep the law of God inside your heart, you will not do any damage to your brother, you will not do any damage to God or anything else. But once you start forgetting about those principles, then you start getting in troubles, and then you're trying to find a remedy for it. If you injured somebody,
But
there's
a lot
no
of it's
remedies.
still man-made, though. If you
It
really
is.
look
As
at
long
it.
as it's a man-made and there is no injured party, you will get away. But if you create the injured party, meaning somebody who's
a
really
real
injured,
person, a
Can
real
That's-
file a
citizen.
complaint against
yeah,
you.
that's
right.
already could be even brought in the common law. Or, I mean, different ways. That's. I mean, you're supposed to be able to govern people. You know, that's what we gave actually supposedly government the power to control us. You know, our
Give
the
us
things-
policy.
Yeah,
We want policy.
and it's all it is, just tradition. You gotta remember this. What's they wrote for us? It's statutes and regulations. All these bills, it's just the statutes and regulation. It's tradition.
But see, here's
It's
the
not nothing but tradition.
here's the beauty of
Really?
this
Yes.
traditional way of life is that even Kennedy said, no one will ever, never, and I mean like he said in a sense, no one will ever question the appropriations or the expenditures of the public trust. And the reason why he said that is basically to say, no one will ever challenge the fact that if we're going to rob them, they're not going to lease themselves to us. Because if they don't, well, damn it, we're just going to extort them. We're going to make up laws that prove through the emphasis of what's been created for them to dock them regardless. And remember, docket is what he has in front of him, the judge. Okay, and the docket is where you are, where it sways in commerce. He's waiting for God to come and tell him what to do. 3 days later, I've come to a resolution. It is so to be judged. He goes in and signs the decree and says, "Okay, you're a maniac. You're going to jail." And that's it. That's the bottom line. I mean, he doesn't want to negotiate. Even if he's, as a matter of fact, here's a good thing. And I'm sure you never heard of this. A judge going in asks me, Mr. Gillen, you know you did wrong. He doesn't say this, but he looks at me and he says, do you know what you're charged with, or something of that nature? I'm silent. I'm literally Mirandized by him. And he says, okay, how do you plead? I don't say a word. Now he turns around and enters in
Guilty
not,
plea
no,
for you?
not guilty plea. That they all have to assume that I'm not guilty. I'm assuming the position as they're negotiating for me. So I'm really, in reality, I got my legs spread, I got my hands out, and I'm waiting to be basically deflogged, taken of my clothes, renegotiated, put into a decompression center for liquidation, which is basically jail until further notice. All right, so what we have is a guy that says, all right, I'll enter a not guilty plea, but what is he really doing? Isn't he negotiating for you? Isn't he saying he agrees that you're not guilty based on the assumption that he believes is a fact, irregardless if you're guilty or not guilty? So in reality, I come back and I say, well, Your Honor, you agree that I'm not guilty. Well, thank you for entering that agreement. And I walk out of court. And he's looking like, this is a hard one. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
confuse
basically
the
just-
judges, and then they'll don't know what to act, because they're
Right.
supposed to now really study the laws, what they're supposed to know, and that's, you put them in a spot where they like
They have
let's
to
just set it
negotiate for you.
aside and we got another 50 million.
But
people
they're
watching.
definitely going to. They're going to negotiate for you. They can't allow you to walk away without enacting.
So they know that there is this court within a court.
Of course,
They're all
yeah.
aware of it, but they're kind of sold it in a way
Okay.
because they're not all criminals.
You can't get in there unless you're a Mason or something, or certain participation with the devil worshiping organization. It's
Are you
included
kidding
in.
me?
No, of course
You
not.
can't be a judge unless you're a devil
Oh
worshiper.
my goodness, no, of course. Of course not. There's no way. They come to
That's
you in the
heavy-duty
ship
stuff.
clothing.
That's a
I
very
did
hard
not say
claim.
that.
Right. I do it all the
very
time.
tough
I'm here in Kalamazoo County. There is not even one judge in Kalamazoo County
That's
who has
honest?
none,
None?
zero, have zero faith. None of them took the oath of office at the time when they were supposed to. They had
Right.
10 days from the election.
That's right.
None of them. I pulled every single one of the son of a mugs, bonds and oath of office. None of them took it at the right time. So they all disqualified just because of it. All they do there is just why they wearing a black robe, because they're trying to be a priest, Roman priests, sitting there pretty much preaching to you. You know, trying
Negotiate
to-
your sin.
Yeah.
Negotiate your sin.
All it is, look at this. This country was established
God
by
gave
Masons.
it to him in 3 days. He said, my only begotten son will allow you to negotiate.
We
for
gave
you."
him God-given power
And-
because
and-
we did
and-
this.
So help me God. Not help you. Help me God.
There's,
So he's basically saying that I'm going to take on the formula of what is ideologically supposed to be God's remedy to man, which is judgment. Now, he's not going to come down and just start wiping off the planet of all the bad people. So he has to allow to be judged, ye is judged. So in other words, I have to judge where I am judged not. If I'm perfect, then every living thing in sentiment is a liability. And they are all questionable. And the law will wipe them and cleanse them of their uncorrectiveness, and we're going to correct them, and we're going to stick them in jail, and we're going to. And if I got locked up, honestly, I would come out as light as a. I'm serious. There's light bulbs around here. I'm dead serious. I will come out flushed because they've literally taken.
They've purified you.
There you go.
exactly.
Pure,
trying
pure
to make-
white waters. Is-
Don't the Catholic Church always sells you indulgence?
Right,
Or
yeah.
you commit the sins right now,
That's
and just
right.
pay me right now,
Right.
you'll forgive it.
And
You
here's
see?
some holy water.
It's same principles, just that.
I was raised Catholic, so I know there's a lot of mumbo jumbo
Oh, man.
with all of that stuff.
I
But
love
never,
people.
I never equated the legal system with the
awesome.
religious.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, the times that I've been in court, it seems very inappropriate how moral or whatever
Yeah.
the judge is acting, trying to take the higher ground, seemingly. And it always seems a little off and a
You'll
little
see
weird.
now a little more
Not
about
weird, not weird. If you're artificially in power, you have to show power beyond the yielding restraints of man's form of deity. If I'm a deity of my name, he's going to bring it down to that from God to resident to pawn, or whatever you like to call it, to what's the last thing you can think of? A peasant. So he has to reduce me of my artificial idea of a deity, and he has to bring me down to a status in which he can then judge. In other words, I can't be equal to him in order for the equinox of the cosmos to collide and harmonize with one another. The
So
stars
if you
can
bring
collide.
in equality somehow, then it takes away his power? Is that what you're saying?
Not just equality, balance. That's where the budget, that's where the statutes, and where the
And it's
contractual
all
concept.
economic balance we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Merchant law,
Absolutely.
all behind it.
It's all merchant law, but yet, what do we get out of it? We've got more people in
Litigation,
prison than any
yeah.
other country.
It is.
Lots and lots
and
of
this is
litigation.
the thing is the whole economies of entire world are collapsing right now. There is absolutely no cure. There is no cure. I'm talking to the very highest, officials in the government. There is no cure.
Because it's all interrelated.
It's so corrupt. It's so false. It's based on
Overvalued.
lies.
It's very
Yes,
much overvalued.
everything too.
Derivative,
No,
so
people overvalue a system that no longer works. That's
Yeah.
why
I agree.
we're in a
Exactly, and it's
if we were all to take on the high ground of litigating on our own, if I take you to court and say, I'm going to balance your 40 years of life and reduce it by the balance of the budget and put the money where it's supposed to be, if everyone was to do this, there would be absolutely, for one, there would be no forms of indictment for incarcerating someone that could use their funds for better uses, which ultimately government is just really not ready to regulate whether or not a private company can have their expenditures taken away simply because, well, they renegotiated, and now we have to abide by the rules and policies in which we created, balance the budget, and then force the people to realize that they're free, which of course is the form
That's
of
why
equality
it's-
we're all
It's
technically
form of
looking for.
religion.
Yeah,
He just explained. It's
literally.
exactly. It's a form of religion.
Religious.
What's the religion means? It's man's concept of worship of God to God. That's it. It's man's concept. So every single religion is wrong. There is
Manifested.
not even one religion.
Nope.
There
I
is
agree.
godliness.
I agree.
That's a different story. That's when you learn from the God, you learn His commandments, you keep His law, you go according to His prophecies. Then you ain't nothing to worry about it. But there is devil. Most people want to believe in God, but they say, "Oh no, there is no devil." He is.
But that's the
He's
whole-
all behind everything. All this, what we're talking about, all this bond system, everything. He
But
knows.
no. That's not him. That's not him. No,
all
no.
His servants.
Not his servants, because if we were servants of the very system we despise, then ultimately we would technically be the enemies of the very friends that we call devils. So in
Who's a
reality,
friend? He's not my friend.
that's
Devil's
true.
not my friend.
But he's a manifestation trying to befriend you.
No.
Yes, he is, because if he offered you something of a benefit and you took it, and the misconstrued
And
language
now
of
all
it,
of a sudden we're gonna take the God didn't give it to me. Devil did it?
No.
God gives it to me.
No. He couldn't have given you. He could have given you life, but he can't give you. Well, let's put it like this: if he gave you life, he give you death.
He
You
can't-
can. That means you can't.
Devil can't do none of that.
But you can't blame God for something He created. You can't
I'm
blame.
not blaming him by no means.
Exactly, which is why you can't blame the devil, because it's not.
What you mean?
him.
Yeah, I can blame the devil.
No, because he's
He brought the
manifested
sin on earth.
through man, not for man. Man was not manufactured
Through-
for sin.
Okay, hold on. Let's see.
If he was
What
manufactured
was
for
the
sinning,
first? What was the first sin of devil? What was the first sin which condemned him?
and that was man manufactured and written. Was it not?
Jealousy.
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 Couldn't it be envy? Couldn't it be love?
Yes, it's all-
admiration.
no
It
love.
could be any.
There's no
any-
love.
There's no love.
There's-
So you're telling me at
devil
the
has
very
no
beginning,
love.
well, that's true, but at the same time, you still have to manufacture a form of governance so that the idea of
That's
the
a
policy
man's
holder,
idea.
No, policy holder. That means the man with the book that says this Bible is true and correct.
It's not just the Bible.
Allows a form of balance, but that's the only way that he feels he can balance himself out. That's the interpretation of man saying, I'm going to balance it based on simple principles, which is true. He stepped out of that by manufacturing the guidelines of the policies and then misconstrued it just like the Constitution. He then said, okay, Article 1, Section 9, there's no money to be made. You cannot appropriate any forms of currency. No government, even the federal government, without the consequence of law. That means that you have to make a mistake in order for me to manufacture something out of the monetization system. That means you have to breach a contract. Once you breach a contract, I can create a budget to balance you based on correcting your efforts in which you become liable to.
It's all number wizardry. It's like people in power always do. They take whatever happens and use it to their advantage.
Thank you, which is exactly why
Exactly. So
if
now-
you took a Bible, you can do the same thing, but they only manifested it out of Bible. So I'm not necessarily saying
Where is the Bible came from?
I
Babylon.
couldn't tell you that.
I can.
There you go. It's a possibility.
325 AD, Constantine gathered all his bishops, sends them in the island, and
Oh,
tells
there
him
you
that
go.
you can't come out of that island unless you come up with the book. I can control the religion.
Thank you.
It's exactly how it happened. How many thousands actually
Awesome.
books was found in Dead Sea Scrolls?
Well,
2,000. Okay, like we was talking about, Book of Enoch, the Book of Barnabas. I mean, there's so many books. The Book of Mary, even, you know, it's not the bad
so you
books.
put a
you know.
lot of faith in these ancient books.
That's the words of God. You have to. You see, I cannot take a faith when man comes up to me and say, "Oh, don't read this book." No, it's no good. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is to read that book to
Right.
test it to what?
To
It's
see
in
if he's
Isaiah.
right.
In Isaiah 8:20, gave us a filter for how can we filter the information. It says, if it doesn't speak according to the law and to the testimony, there is no light in them. Law is 10 commandments, testimony is prophecy. So every single book you read, whatever you read, it has to speak and say, yeah, you have to keep the God's law, and it's everything going to be according to God's prophecies, God's plans. As long as they talk that way and not telling me differently, I accept. I have no other choice but to accept, because it's a word of God, because they don't
Have you? What
contradict.
about the Bible code? You heard books were
Yes,
written
of course.
with codes,
Of
and you
course.
could almost take, like, say, every fifth letter or something, and
Well-
you would get a whole different message.
Like the Da Vinci Code.
Well, yeah,
well,
it's-
but
some of
seriously,
that
I mean, it's based on.
you
some
have to
proof.
study
Well,
the symbols. The symbols is important. Let's say what the woman means, what the beast means, what the water means. You know, let's say waters.
Don't you
Revelation.
notice there's no women in that Bible? Don't you know that?
There's two.
Except for Mary and
Not a lot.
No,
yeah.
no.
It's
There's-
very
you
male
really
and
don't know.
Herod. I don't know.
There is so many women. You don't even know what the Holy Spirit is female, don't you?
Probably so.
And she is the wife of God, actually. You
I
see,
can imagine that.
yeah, because when God created the male and female in our likeness, who was the female likeness in heaven? Most people don't want to teach you. Catholic Church specifically, you know, they want to only say, "Oh, it's a man." We're all equally yoked.
Right.
The woman and the man is equally yoked. You can't make them differently. You know, it's a traditions again. How they're trying to brainwash. You know, let's say with this book of Enoch, you know, what we're talking about. That book of Enoch explains the things what's happened before flood. In the Bible, you read it till Genesis pretty much 6, you know, and that's the stuff of that happened before flood. And it's
Right.
really, you have no idea what's really happened, you know, about Abel killing. Yeah, I mean, and that's it.
Do you believe in Atlantis, Lemuria,
No.
things like that?
No. Well, I cannot say I don't believe in them. I see no value to bring me closer to God in believing in that.
Or even
because
a proof, even a form of proof.
I gotta, because we started before the show started, and I didn't finish it. Remember, there is in Genesis 6:4, it talks about the sons of God came down to earth and took themselves of wives, and to them was born giants or Nephilims, depends on the
okay.
translation. Who was those sons of God? Okay, first of all, to get called
Part
sons
alien,
of God,
part apes.
alien. Let's
My
get
theory.
get to that point. To be called son of God, you have to be originated from God. We are sons of man, correct? Every single human being is son of man.
I disagree.
Okay,
I believe that everything is made of God stuff, so we are all sons of God.
but we was originated from the man. Even Jesus Christ was called son of man.
Okay.
Okay, so the only things what was created by God besides man is angels.
Angels, spirits.
Angels, spirits came up later. Let me. There's two different things.
Well, okay.
The fallen in the book of Enoch, it explains the fallen angels. There's a 200 of watchers, and they called them by names and everything else. Who actually made this covenant, blood covenant, said we're going to go and take ourselves wives. Okay, they came actually took women to themselves, disclosed information. It explains everything. One of them was a watcher of astrology, another physics, another armors, you know, everything. All these knowledges which came up to the humans to destroy themselves, kind of, came up from those fallen angels.
But let me ask you a
disclosing
question.
information.
Doesn't that still sound like wizardry? I mean, it really sounds
Almost, but you have to separate that.
It doesn't. to
You
me.
have to-
It sounds
you
like
really
science,
have
it
to-
sounds like
a
patterns.
lot of.
I mean,
It has to
astrology
make
to me
sense.
sounds like a big cosmic computer. I don't
that,
see
Astrology is important.
that landed on us, not literally. I mean by
It will make you sense once I'll finish it saying
Okay.
this stuff.
Okay.
Take a look. Then in the book of Enoch, it explains after then the giants was found actually in Greece. So now after they took the man, they start experiencing sexually or genetically
Right.
with, says it, fish, with reptiles and birds. That's where your dinosaurs came from. That's why the dinosaurs was not in the Ark of the Covenant, because they were never created by God. It was all these offsprings of fallen angels. In every single religion, the way you can explain where their knowledge came from, they worship to snakes and dragons. China, Japan, India, every single thing you look around. Anybody who worships,
at some point,
that's where their
practice.
knowledge came from.
Yep.
Now look at this.
Their
Who came to
knowledge
see
from
from
snakes
fallen
and
angels?
dragons?
From fallen angels.
Oh.
They're the one who call themselves Anunnaki. That's another race.
I've heard that term.
That's the one. That's what they found 26,000 stone tablets in Iraq in the 1800s. And in those stone tablets, there is so much knowledge about the cosmos and everything else. And they even call themselves, we're the one who came from heaven to earth. Well, who came from heaven to earth?
Right.
Fallen angels, and devil was evicted. And you see now every single time when you watch the
But what about
history
if
channels.
what about man was just a vessel to interpretate all of this,
There's
to manufacture his own demise? Maybe
we're not going to
maybe he's out-
manufacture nothing. We're
But
going to go by the
But,
archaeology and
they're
history.
doing it, but they're doing the same thing right now. Look at what
you
they're
have
doing.
to separate that stuff.
How could you
have
separate?
to filter
what-
it
but
yourself.
but you can't do what man has already made. In other words,
You can.
we can't stop him for what he's going to do. He technically wants to kill himself.
Who?
Man, he's decided that God.
That's his
he's not
problem.
going to give him. He's not going to give him eternal life. I mean, eternity and life. These super ultra rich people, as far as I'm concerned, if they found the cure to cancer and everything else that manufactured longevity beyond, say, 150 years old, they would kill us all. I don't think they
They're
would
already
need us
doing
after
it.
that. Yeah, of course, but I'm saying we're still a thesis of man.
This is
Man is
something
still
you
a
don't know
thesis
yet.
in
You
manufacturing.
need to study about this stuff really seriously
Right.
because this I'm just
Tell
going
me
to put
about,
it
I
up.
want to know more about the 26,000 tablets in Iraq.
26,000.
How could you look that up on the internet?
Oh, just type it in Anunnaki or 26,000 Nibiru. One of the things about Nibiru, let's say, where is
This is the planet that
Yes, which
goes
is-
around Sirius and our
yes,
sun.
Yes.
Is
yes.
Nibiru
It's
coming soon?
Yes, very soon. It's happened. Well, where is the asteroid belt came from?
Is that a destroyed
think.
planet?
It's a destroyed planet.
Right.
In that
Okay.
tablets was explained what there's a planet which called Nibiru collided with planet Tiamat.
Right.
Okay, and then it was thrusted into a long elliptical orbit around the sun, lasting 3,600 years. Every 3,600 years, the destroyer comes.
Right.
That's what the Daniel talks about. The destroyer comes and wreak havoc on Earth. It's a brown dwarf planet. It's already been shown. But there is so much more stuff besides the Nibiru what's coming up. I mean, look at this. Orinoids. It's a meteor shower. Just happened. Then the Leonoids. All of
No,
a
where
sudden
was this
show.
at, though? Where was this
No,
at?
you're going to read
Are
it
these precursors of
right
this
now,
planet?
as we speaking, right this second.
Are they heralding this planet coming?
Well, there is the planet is coming. Just it's all coming to the alignment. You know, December 21st, we're gonna have the alignment of all the planets. You know, we're going through the middle of the galaxy. Once you cross the middle of the galaxy, you switch in the polarity, because one polarity. Well, in the center of our galaxy, we have black hole. Black hole shoots the energy, well, sucks it in energy, and then shoots it up, and then swirls back the magnetic field, and then disperses it through the middle region. It's a high radiation. It's a million times worse
Can
than
kill
any
everything.
any microwave.
Yeah.
Okay, and on each side is different polarity. That's what the Mayan. Well, let me get back
The
to
Mayans,
before
yeah, I know
before
you was gonna-
Mayans.
yeah.
Before we
Yeah,
get
definitely.
what is the knowledge? Where does that calendar came from? The Mayans talks about it. Do you know?
It's great cycles. They're great
Okay,
cycles.
Genesis 1:14. Okay, it says when God created the moon and the sun and the stars, He created them for the signs, for seasons, months, and years. He created the calendar on the 3.5 day. That's what the churches don't teach you that stuff. When the Magi came to see Jesus was born, what did they follow? They follow a star. How did they know? They came. So Magi is just like the knowledge of this. You know, was given not to Jews, but to some outsiders, so they can figure it out. It's exactly the same thing happening right now. The high priests, all the preachers and everything, they can't figure out the prophecy. The outsiders will, because we can see it better. You know, we're not pre-programmed, you know, to the traditions. You know, once you start studying, like I said, the greatest filter is it has to speak according to the law and to the prophecy. It's because everything will happen according to God's plan. Not humans. We all discussing things. We're gonna create all. None of that stuff matters. We need to find out what God's plans are and what we're doing. You see, there is a lot of people saying, well, I'm a servant of God, and I'm a slave to God, or anything else. Have you ever heard about definition friend of God?
Like a friend.
I am a friend of God.
like a
I
friend.
like it.
Like a friend of the court. I'm gonna.
Well, I am a friend of God.
Right.
If somebody wanna mess with me,
Right. You gotta talk to him first.
man, go ahead. Yeah, he's in charge.
Right.
Okay. The only thing I can tell people is about his plans. Okay. Alignment is important, of course, very important, because it's not. You can't dismiss it.
Yeah.
You cannot just dismiss it. Well, hey, nothing gonna happen. No. If you try to put it somewhere where it's not according to the God's plans, it will not make sense. Like everybody say, oh, it's the end of the world. Well, first of all, hold on. Before the end of the world, there are so many things happens. Plagues. Where is that? No, nobody talks about plagues. What about the Antichrist? All these things. Now they're really speeding up and happening fast. But actually, December 21st identifies the beginning of the last 7 plagues. The great distress. And then as soon as the plagues
As they
begin,
say, as the seals are.
the seal's already been opening.
The seventh seal, right?
Well, the sixth seal.
Okay.
The sixth seal is Revelation 6:12,
Right.
and it talks about when he opens the sixth seal, there was a great earthquake. The sun became like the dark, and the moon became like a black. The stars fell from sky like a fig tree shaken by the mighty wind.
Well, an EMP can do that.
Yes,
If it
and
kills
then
one,
it says
yeah.
all the rich men and the
It's
kings of the earth and the mighty men and the free men hid themselves in caves and hide themselves and said, rocks fall on us and hide us from the wrath of the Lamb. Well, the wrath of the Lamb identified in Revelation 15 as the last 7 plagues. So once these things happens, the stars falling, the great earthquake and everything else.
Phil, this is getting scary, isn't it?
Well, it's not scary. Once you
It's
know
so
that-
interesting, though.
It is interesting.
Because I've heard this in
and
many
I'm
other sources.
speeding up right now because we almost have running out of the time, and you need to know these things. So once the plagues begins, the trumpets start blown because they're the one who announcing of approaching of the king. The trumpets only blown right before the king comes up. Well, once there's 7 trumpets, and nobody knows what the 7th trumpet sounded, but first is the first one. There's an asteroid falling, February 16th, the one. Then there's a second one. When he opens again, there's a Vatican get destroyed totally. The third one is another.
That was personal.
Oh, it's not personal. It's God's plan. I can't do nothing about it. I'm not. I love every single person, but that's why I'm telling them they have to make their choice. It's like a sign of Jonah right now, guys. There's about to get messed up. You better change or eat the consequences.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens right now. People have to change. We can't go by those traditions because they're all gonna get us dead.
That's negotiable.
Exactly, that's it.
Right.
So now, when the trumpets, by the time the third trumpet blown, the earth spins 1/3 time faster. Nobody talks about this stuff.
That's what it says
Yes.
in this book of Enoch or something? Or
No,
even-
it's in Revelation.
Okay.
I'll show you.
When I look at books in the Bible, I don't necessarily take them literally.
Okay, you remember I told you about symbols. You have to
Okay.
know the symbols.
Okay.
Okay, let's. I'll show you a few so you would understand. Let's go to Revelation 12. Okay, let's go to Revelation 12, and there's I think it's next 7. Sorry, guys. Okay, 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil. So the dragon identifies as a devil. Okay, not a beast. Beast is the government or the power, which is you can read in Daniel. The woman represents the church. There's 2 types of women. There's a pure one, which talks about the pure church, and then the
Like
harlot.
spirituality? I mean, just pure spirituality. would you say?
The connection.
The connection. When you see when Jesus Christ came, he started talking in parables.
Right.
He said, "What the seeing may not see, and the hearing may not understand." Those are the ones who's not looking for salvation. You will never understand. You'll think it's like Harry Potter book.
You think it's right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Look in the mirror.
Seriously, how it is. But once
Can't
you
believe it.
understand the symbols, let's say Revelation 17. Let's go to Revelation 17. A lot of good symbols in there. 17:9. And here's the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. So the head, when you saw on a beast, head identifies the mountains. So the 7-head beast means it's a government sitting between 7 mountains. Which one is that? Rome.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. So
Wow.
then,
Interesting.
or without that, let's say the waters which you saw, where the whore sits, are people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So when you see something very water, like the beast comes out of the sea, well, it came out of the very, very populated area. I'm telling you, go to the internet and type it in Bible symbols, okay? And go and especially one from Amazing Facts I would recommend that, and it gives you all these different symbols where they at in the Bible.
So
and
you can
then
interpret these books.
yes, and then there's no my interpretation. There's not your interpretation. Once you start reading and knowing the symbols, then you know and compare it to history, because history cannot be changed. And that's what is so powerful, why this devil hates two things. The last verses of Revelation 12. Devil hates those who keeps the commandments of God and those who have the testimony of Jesus. Testimony of Jesus is the prophecies, the spirit of prophecy. That's what it is. I mean, he hates it because he cannot change the history.
Right.
God already knew. He told us what's going on. That's why it's so easy for me to read it right now and see what says in Daniel 11:40s and beyond.
Well, I feel redeemed right now. And,
We are.
And I'm gonna leave on this note. You guys were fabulous. Thank you, guys. Phil Bassett, the
Yeah,
moderator.
he is
This guy
awesome.
is great. I love this guy.
He is awesome. We're going to meet again.
I hope so. It's been very interesting hearing both of you guys seem really well versed on a lot of different things that aren't really in the public eye.
And I like to leave one last thing. If you want to, if you need any legal redeems, and I'm sure he has plenty of those too. I like this guy. He understands the systematic way of things. But if you want to contact Mr. Gillen, as you can see, you can call me at 917-292-9114. Also, you can email me at commonbonding@gmail.com. You can see my YouTubes, which of course I am going to definitely post a YouTube, not only on this, but as far as negotiating, really maybe even negotiating trust in law, where in lieu of God, you can actually use the metaphors of the language in legal interpretation. I'm going to dig into this. I don't myself believe into the whole biblical, ideology.
It's not just the
subject.
biblical. It's not just Bible. You
Right.
got to understand. There is no such things as only Bible.
Right.
Bible is the greatest
No,
thing. It's a
I-
word of
no,
God.
Only,
but there's other things.
No,
you
only
need to
the
know.
interpretation
Exactly.
of.
I don't
what
need no
they've written.
commentary. I
Right.
can read myself and
Right.
understand it.
But
It's not-
the only thing I want to do is I want to turn it into an absolute subject, something that has to be dissected and then put back together again for man's preview of law. He says, "In God we trust." Okay, so you're telling me that I'm entrusted or deposited in God. Okay,
Oh my
fine.
goodness.
We could use that. But I think the more important part is in the liaison of an office, meaning me being something that they artificially created, then I would absolutely want to use God as the interpretation of not only the person on the bench or even the district attorney's office, but the one actually saying that I could redeem myself. That happens to
Well,
be the
he's
judge.
the one who taught us how to redeem it, because Jesus
Yeah.
actually showed us how to deal in commerce.
That's right.
If you read the whole Bible, understand what he done, how he went in front of the Pilate and what he done. That's exactly what we were talking about. How to redeem yourself, how to not to get in trouble. All these
I'll give
things.
to Caesar what is Caesar's.
That's
Well,
right.
yes.
But not what he has to offer, but what he has to redeem.
Mm-hmm.
He has to redeem, not us, because he has to send it to God. 3 days he returned, and 3 days he lent to me the truth, and I give him nothing more than facts. So I'm definitely gonna dig in that. I like that. I'm pleased at this subject. This is great. I'm gonna tear
Very
this apart.
enlightening.
Oh, on YouTube you can find me at Grinch11. GRENCH 11.
All right. Well, everybody knows my phone number, 269-209-5629, anytime.
The sovereign of God.
Exactly. And let me point it out. What is the sovereign citizen? Citizens usually say it's a slave. I am sovereign slave of kingdom of God. That's
He's a
who we
redeemer.
are.
This is a healer right here. Get his hands on me.
He's an interpreter, man.
That's right.
I like it. It's been a very enlightening discussion. A lot of food for thought today. There's been discussion, suggestions for websites to look at. I'm certainly going to look at one or two of these myself. there's so much information out there, and we've been lied to in so many ways that this has been a very informative and a useful program. I'm glad to have been on here.
Last thing, politicsandmoney.blogspot.com. You're gonna find me there too. I keep forgetting about little things.
Excellent. Thanks for being a source for everyone.
Thank you.
Phil.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.